So, what do you guys think holds the sand together? Anybody? Water.
Concrete.
More sand. So again, the heckling is continuing from the front row. What holds it together, you have a wet sand, right? Water, folks, water. That's it. Anybody think that we use glue or metal or what? Yeah, we got people raising their hand. I'm gonna prove you wrong in just a minute, okay? So here it is. This is just sand and water, folks. I'm reaching in this bucket. There's nothing special about it. It's just sand and water, right down on the beach. And I'm gonna add some dry stuff to it, only to speed up the process. So you see right away, I'm starting to create a ball out of it. So when I go to the beach, or I go to a quarry, I'm trying to get the dry stuff here, which really helps me for the demonstration. When I go to the beach or I go to a quarry and I'm looking for sand to create a sand sculpture, the very first time I came here, a year before we did the event, the first thing I did was run down on the beach and grab the sand and try to do this. I make a ball out of the sand, just like this, sand and water. And if I can bounce it in my hand, that tells me if I can sculpt it. So I can sculpt this, but how much it flattens, those of you up front can see, when I bounce it, see how it goes flat? That means that I can't go real high with it, okay? So if it stayed round, that means the higher that I can go. But right away, let's see, I've got a tool here, and I'm gonna carve this for you guys to show you. Right away, I can carve this into a slice. I can even make it thinner and it'll stay up. It's just sand and water, not banana bread. Sand and water. So, some of you think that we add something to the sand. We do not add anything whatsoever to the sand. It's just sand and water. We don't add glue. We don't add flour. We don't add anything other than water. Now, I like to say this because I know some of you, it's been a long day walking up and down that hill several times, and you're tempted to take a nap. Please just listen to me for 2 minutes. If you don't listen to anything else I say. We do use glue on the sculptures. Not in, but on. So, what do you guys think is the worst thing for a sand sculpture?
Rain.
Not rain. Wind. A day like today is hot, windy, and it just sucks the moisture right out of the sand sculpture. So you're sculpting away. How many of you saw the sculptors down there with a mister? And they got a hose and they're just spraying the heck out of it to get it wet. That's the best carving, okay? So wind is the worst thing. A day like today is the worst thing. Rain, what holds it together? Water. So when it rains, it really actually makes it a bit stronger, okay? But I'm not going to stand up here and tell you guys that if a tropical storm blew, well, now we couldn't have a tropical storm. If a big storm blew through here, it's not going to hurt the sand sculpture. But it is going to wash away some of the details, maybe put pock marks on it. So the sand sculptors can fix it very quickly and I'm going to show you some of the methods that we use to do that. We put Elmer's glue and water, heavily diluted, in a big canister. Anybody notice the pump sprayers they had? Well, that's what's in there. It's a mixture of 1 gallon glue per 20 gallons of water. The glue is already 92% water, so it's a very minuscule amount of glue that we're putting on it. But what it does is it creates, when we're all done, it creates an eggshell coating on the sand sculpture and prevents it from drying out and blowing away. Okay, so that's how we use the glue. Again, it's spraying it on. Well, here's the bad part about it. If you're sand sculpting, you work from the top down. If you're done with a piece and you spray it with the glue, you're not going back up and fixing it. It's done. You're done. You're working your way down. So that's how we use the glue. Everybody got that? Because I've heard so many people walk up the hill going, oh yeah, there's big barbed wire in there, rebar or something. So when I covered the rain, I covered the glue. So I got, yeah. Any questions so far? So let me tell you about how we pack the sand, folks. We're going to 3 methods of basically packing the sand. We have soft pack, hard pack, and wet stacking. Now, wet stacking you saw me do, and I'm going to demonstrate, but that's just the wet soupy sand. Soft packing, you guys have probably done. You probably went out to the beach and packed up a sand sculpture, right? You pushed it up, the sand up into, made a turtle or an alligator, a flower or something. When you do that, that's called soft packing. The difference that you guys probably did wrong was you didn't use enough water. So every sand sculptor out there is going to, or the semi-pros, they're going to use about 600 gallons of water. I'm guessing that, I'm going to ask Shauna. Shauna, how many buckets of water did you carry from the beach from?
I mean, at least 5-gallon buckets apiece.
So she did work in the amateurs, and she said she carried 25-gallon buckets from the lake to her plot. So that tells you how much water we're using. She had about 2 tons of sand. So just a ton of water that we're using when we pack up our sculptures, okay? So that's kind of called soft pack. And then there's the method of using forms. So the best method I can show you guys for using forms is one of these. How many of you have used these? Come on, raise your hand, pay attention. We've all used these, right? And I like to jokingly say, if you haven't used these, I'm pretty sure you've given these to your kids or grandkids and tortured them with it. Because what happens? You pack these full of sand and water, put them on the beach, pound the heck out of them, pull it off. What happens most of the time? Falls apart. All of you are out there going, falls apart. Half of it sticks in here. We don't use these. We get rid of them. Throw them away. Get yourself a bucket, folks. Any size bucket will work. This is just a 1-gallon bucket, okay? Cut the bottom of it off. Now, you can turn it upside down, fill it full of sand and water, and slide it off, and you've got a cylinder of sand to carve. I'm gonna actually demonstrate that a little bit for you guys to teach you how to do it. But let's see if we can get this to stay. Maybe not. Here is a 1/4 gallon. So for the demonstration, I've got a 5-gallon. Here's a 1 gallon, and here's a 1/4 gallon. So what's that look like to start of? A castle, very good. So you get 3 different sizes, any size bucket, even a hard plastic cup will work. Get any one of those 3 in different sizes, and you can build up a castle very, very quickly. And when I get done, you're gonna know how to put rocks and bricks on it. All right, everybody knows what this is. A funnel. Very simply, I've got damp sand up here on the stage. I'm gonna scoop up a bunch of it. I'm gonna cram it in that funnel. And then I'm gonna turn it over, and it's not gonna come off because the air is holding it in, right? So take the sand, wipe the sand off the nozzle, blow in it, and you got a perfect castle top every time. Okay, so all you gotta do is get a bucket. That's all right. If I get attached to anything other than a good photograph, I'm gonna have a pretty miserable life. See that? See how the funnel matches the bottom of the bucket? You do the same thing with a smaller one in a cup. I actually have a smaller one up here, but yeah, you can just find a funnel to match the bottom of the bucket and pound it up. Very, very simple. Oh, let's see. How do we pound up in forms? Now, the method that I'm going to teach you guys is no different with 50 pounds of sand, which these are, than 100 tons of sand. It still has to all be packed in layers. The reason we do it in layers is because we want to make sure that all the sand is totally saturated with water. Because if I were to pound this bucket up full of sand, if I just put a bunch of sand and then water and not really mixed it up, and then I lifted it up and I had a big dry spot, what do you think is going to happen? Boom, it all comes down on me. So we do it in layers. What we do is we put 3 or 4 inches of sand in the bottom of the bucket. Then we put water. How much water? You just put, the beach is going to soak up a lot of it. So you just put just a whole bucket of water in there. And then you mix it up, and then you're going to pound it. So I use my fist a lot of times in a bucket this size, but in a smaller bucket you can use your fingers. Up here, when we prep for our quicksand shows and for our demonstrations, we use a tamper just like this. On a big commercial job, we would use a big power, or they call them jumping jacks, to just pummel the sand into what we want it pounded up as, okay? Again, layers, sand, water, mix it, and then pound it. And you keep doing that in layers till you get all the way to the top. Now, this is not a cylinder, but it is a cat from our quicksand show that we had at 1 o'clock. Quicksand is a speed sculpting show. What we do is we do 2 pound ups up here, and we introduce 2 of our sculptors, and they come up and in 10 minutes sculpt something. There's another one here. That was, well, I kind of wrecked it by putting the thing on it, but it was a cat also. Here's the cool thing about it, though. The audience chooses the subject. I'll go out in the audience and find a subject for them to carve. This one was a cat. What was the other one this morning, or yesterday? A snowman, Frosty the Snowman. So we find something cool for them to carve, and then we give them 10 minutes. All said and done, the audience chooses the winner by round of applause. Whoever loses is done. And then the winner moves on towards the championship round tomorrow at 4. So that's how that. But if that weren't there, then I've pounded it up again in layers. I've got to the top, and then I hit the sides and I remove it, and I have a cylinder of sand that's ready to carve. So I'm going to just take this and show you guys. See that? It's just ready to carve. Just sand and water, folks. That's all it is. Now, let's see. What can I show you guys next? I am going to